I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we are speaking to a daring and thought-provoking author who is tackling one of the most contentious debates of our time in his groundbreaking work, The Holy Bible, No Free Will.
What is free will? Free will requires that you could have done and chosen otherwise with the exact same knowledge and circumstance you had at the time. We now know free will is false and doesn't exist. For as long as I can remember, I was told it's your choice. But, is it? The answer may surprise you. Do you believe in free will? Have you ever wondered why so many people believe in free will? Did you know the Holy Bible is the best-selling book of all time? Did you know free will is a sacred doctrine and has its origins firmly rooted in theology and religious dogma? In case you didn't know, free will is the theological notion taught to us to explain why people do bad things. It's in Book 1, Genesis, the story of Adam and Eve. We are also taught in the Bible that we are made in God's image, and God has free will, and that, in order to truly love Him, we must be free to do so. We were taught man's will is free. We were taught all wrong. Have you ever told a religious person you don't believe in free will? What was their response? Did they dismiss you as crazy and accuse you of blasphemy? Did they tell you, of course there is free will, and we know that for a fact, because God gave man free will, and the Bible says so? What can you say back to these religious people? The next time a religious person tells you that the Bible gave human beings free will, you will simply tell them they are reading the wrong kind of Bible, and that they need to read the Holy Bible, No Free Will. In this free will world that we are currently living in, people are living in the cruelty of deep regret. People are needlessly suffering because they truly believe they could have done otherwise in all their affairs. As you know, in life, there are always two sides to every story. Listen to this side of the story, the no free will side. Once we open the door to the possibility that free will is false, we should be able to expand our minds to conclude that there is no free will. It is time for a new beginning. We are in a new world now with unprecedented challenges before us. It is now time to read and learn why free will is false. In the Holy Bible, No Free Will. Available on Amazon, wherever you may be.
We are delighted to have author Nick Vale join us in the spotlight today. Thank the folks at Authors Tranquility Press for helping us put him in the spotlight today, and ask viewers like you to support writers like him by subscribing to our channel. Nick, thanks so much for being our guest today.
What's that?
I said, thanks for being our guest today. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure, my pleasure. You're wearing a shirt that kind of says it all. It says free will is an illusion. And that's kind of the premise of your book, the thesis of your book as well. What do you mean by free will is an illusion?
Okay, well, first of all, thank you for having, because this debate needs awareness. As of now, I think it's mostly in philosophy class and academia. And what I mean by free, so, I want to get this out of philosophy class into the mainstream. And somebody's texting me. Okay, so what I mean by free will is an illusion is that nothing in your life is up to you, that everything's predetermined. There are only two ways to do something, because either someone forces you to do it, you're either forced to do it, or you want to do it. Now, when you want to do something, you're not in control of what your desires are in the first place, because if you could control your desires, everybody who amongst us would have an immoral desire. We would only choose to do things that are good for the world and good for us and make us happy. So though we do what we desire to do, we do not control or choose what our desires are in the first place. And that's where the illusion comes in, because people feel like I can do what I want. Yes, you can do what you want, but you don't get to choose what you want to do in the first place. So you might have a preference, but you don't get to choose what that preference is Logan, in the first place. So that's where the illusion comes in, because you feel like no one's, like I said, there's only two ways to do things. You're either forced to do it or you want to do it. So if you're being forced to do it, obviously that's not free will. There's no illusion there. The illusion is when you want to do it and you do it because you want to, but you don't get to choose. Again, I'm saying this, you don't get to choose what you want to do in the first place. Did that make sense?
It does make sense. It is a debate that I've always been interested in, studying both theology and philosophy extensively. The whole idea of, are we puppets on a string? Is there self-determination? Are we predetermined? So your view is that we are more or less puppets on a string?
Not more or less. 100% we are puppets on a string. There is no free will, zero. I don't want to get this confused with you. You know, you seem to be like you're getting it, but there's zero free will. We're 100% puppets on a string. And the string is to seek pleasure and avoid pain. We have no choice but to seek pleasure and avoid pain. That's the main operating system that we're dealing with, because we are computers and robots. So we have an operating system. It's to seek pleasure and avoid pain. That's the natural law of the universe. You can't get around it.
Now, what about God? Where does God get involved? Is he the puppet master? Is he pulling the strings?
When you say God, I believe that the universe is, I don't believe the universe has free will, but, you know, if God knows everything, obviously, I don't want to get into God, because then people will say, you know, they have this unchallengeable belief that, well, God gave man free will. It's like they're out. So, you know, I'm saying God made the universe. Let's call, when you say God, what do you mean by that? You're not talking about a guy on a chair.
I'm talking about a creator, or what most people
I
view
do
as
believe.
God.
Actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because in the no free will community, which is very small, it's like 99% atheists. For some reason, even though I don't believe in free will, I still think there's, because if it's not our consciousness, whose consciousness is it? Right now, it's I'm a puppet, you're a puppet. We're one puppet talking to another. So I believe in a higher power. When you say God, I believe there's a higher intelligence. I do not believe there's a guy in by the way, God cannot judge a man whose will is not free. So there's no heaven or hell under this scenario, because that wouldn't be fair. So God is a creator that created the universe with embedded in it causality, the law of cause and effect, and also the pleasure principle. We have no choice but to seek pleasure and avoid pain. So the universe is a cause and effect machine, and we are in the universe. We are part of the universe. We're not outside. Obviously, when you go to the beach on a starry night, you don't say to yourself, Logan, I'm outside the universe, or Nick, we're in the universe. So we adhere to all the laws of the universe, which is cause and effect, causality. So the universe, or God, created a universe with causality embedded in it, and seek pleasure and avoid pain.
Yeah, I mean,
that was a good question. You almost threw me off
it's a very interesting topic.
By the way, if I had free will, I would be able to choose and control how to present this perfectly to convince you right away. The fact that I don't have free will, shows in real time that I'm struggling to come up with some answers here that I wasn't prepared for. But if I had free will, I would come up with the words magically to convince you in 2 seconds. So obviously, I cannot control or decide how well I can present this material to make it convincing.
Now, you do believe in God. Do you believe in the Holy Bible?
Wait a second. When you say God, I believe in the entirety of the universe.
Right. You believe in intelligence creation.
God is a very tricky word, because I don't know, when you say God, I don't picture a judgmental being in a throne deciding. I just believe in the higher power of the universe. Let's be careful with that word with me, because I don't know what you mean by it. Okay. What did you say?
I said, do you believe in the Bible?
Okay, so my book, The Holy Bible, No Free Will, is another version of the Bible written by me, a fallible human being that I am a conduit of God's will. I came up with the best I could. The real Holy Bible, the first Holy Bible, was written by human beings that are fallible, that interpreted things. And I don't think anywhere in the original Holy Bible it even says human beings have free will. But I've heard, when I bring this topic up, I've heard people screaming at me that the Holy Bible does give man free will. There's a story of Adam and Eve, and we're made in God's image. And for us to truly love God, obviously you have to be free to love him. You can't, what kind of love would that be if you're forced to love him? So we're made in God's image, and God has free will, so man has free will. I'm saying no, no, no. That Holy Bible, the original. See, I marketed my book as a Bible because I started to say at the beginning of the show, I want this topic out of philosophy class, out of academia, and out of intellectuals, and out of scientists. They're all, like you said, they've been debating it for thousands of years. I stood in Barnes and Noble, and Sam Harris's book came out. There are a lot of people saying there's no free will right now, and they're all in the philosophy section. And in case you haven't noticed, nobody goes in the philosophy section. Everybody hates the philosophy section. It's boring, and everybody gravitates to the Bible section, the religious section, or actually self-help, and some current affairs. So I didn't want my book in the philosophy section. So I said to myself, gee, how can I get this topic out of philosophy class and into main? Oh, I know. I'll market it as a new Holy Bible, because after all, the real Holy Bible, the original, is the best-selling book of all time.
Right.
So my job is, I'm not even trying to win the debate yet. I'm trying to get awareness for the no free will coming revolution that will be coming. And I figure the easiest and fastest way is to market my book as the Holy Bible, No Free Will, to get it out there and out of philosophy section. I don't want to be in because I don't see anybody interested in philosophy in this generation, or even the older they don't. It's a boring topic, and it gets lost with fancy words. And you've got this professor and that PhD, and they're all arguing about free will, and nobody knows what they're even talking about half the time.
Let me ask you this about free will, and I'm not
Sure.
saying you're right or wrong. I'm keeping a completely open mind.
That's excellent. That's all I want. I want you to be open-minded. Thank you.
And
you don't seem as brainwashed as
I have debated
when I talk to people. I get things thrown at me. I get called names. I get bullied, abused. We are ridiculed and bullied segment of the people who don't believe in free will, which I've estimated is 1 out of 10. There's 10% of the population, and because I ask people that, my family, friends, and they cannot. We're in hiding. It's like a taboo subject to say we don't believe in free will in public. We get horrible things are said to us, and we're, Debbie Downer and Depressing Don and Nikki Negative and all these things that how could you ruin life by saying there's no free will? That means it's all meaningless. We are just so and we have never been in public. Every other topic is out there. Okay. Trans issues are now, suicide is out there. Pornography is on, the phone. I saw an erectile dysfunction added like during prime time. I mean, every possible previous taboo issue is now out there, except the free will issue, which is the biggest issue of all time. It's by far the biggest issue. It is historic. By the way, this is my first time on television. So you, my friend, are historic. This is the most historic interview you've ever done. I'm talking about changing the entire consciousness of the human being. Sorry, I'm very excited.
No, it's great.
Answer your question. If I had a free will, I'd be listening.
I appreciate your enthusiasm, and I appreciate your energy. I was going to ask you, so why get out of bed in the morning if everything is predetermined? Okay. The money I make is predetermined. The wife I'll meet is predetermined. Why go about our lives like puppets?
Okay, so you froze a little. So everything is cause and effect. Actions have consequences with or without free will. So if you lay in bed all day and say, Nick told me there's no free will, so I'm going to lay in bed all day, I'm going to smoke pot, play video games, do nothing, then you have a whole set of consequences, a whole set of dominoes bumping into each other related to that course of a day, where you will lose your job, you won't have money, you'll become homeless, you will be unkept, you probably, if you just lay in bed, you're not showering, you'll have to eat and go to the bathroom, but you'll have a whole different life of no money and homelessness. It's without free will. You want to put the right causes into your machinery and say, first of all, that's very hard to do because, like I said, you seek pleasure and avoid pain. You have no choice but to seek pleasure and avoid pain. So if you find it more pleasurable to be homeless and lose your job and lay in bed all day, then that will be your life. But most people who understand there's no free will say, you know what? I can just as easily use cause and effect to my advantage. I'm going to get up, I'm going to shave and shower, I'm going to eat, I'm going to dress nice, I'm going to go to work, I'm going to go to the bus stop. I'm going to, get on the bus. I'm going to be polite to the bus driver, reciprocal, altruism. I'll be nice. It'll come back. Even though there's no free will, I'll find life much easier and nicer and much more pleasurable to go cause and effect in a positive direction. So I can reap the rewards of being cause and effect in a positive way, because with or without free will, like you said, it's cause and effect. But to just lay in bed all day and say, well, Nick said there's no free will. I read the Holy Bible, no free will. It doesn't give you license to do whatever you want, because there's still actions and there's still consequences either way.
Right. What about when it comes to crime?
So
Like,
you're coming up with a very depressing, fatalistic version of this. I'm trying to put, and by the way, even if you're right, even if it's like, say, no free will, I don't see how it could be, but say it's kind of worse for society. Don't we want to put some credence or some value on truth? Like, I don't think you're right. I think I'm right. I think life will be much more compassionate, much kinder. Honesty is the best policy. We won't be stigmatizing people as much who are criminals, because, it's all cause and effect. But I think, like Henry Thoreau said, rather than love, fame, and money, give me truth. There's got to be some emphasis as a human being that we want the truth, and then we'll deal with it. Because I agree, not having free will is kind of stressful. Your whole life isn't in your control. On the other hand, you can forgive yourself for all the silly and stupid mistakes you've made. It wasn't up to you. You don't have to feel like a failure. You can be depressed, but you don't have to be depressed that you're depressed. Why put the secondary emotion on something that wasn't up to you? It's totally out of your control. So there's positive and negatives to no free will. I think much more positives. But even if you were to convince me there might be more negatives, I think the truth should trump the card of the truth should win. I mean, wouldn't you prefer to live on a planet where we're all telling the truth to each other? I don't know if I'm allowed to curse, but instead of bullshit, and that's not. I don't want to live on a planet where everybody's just bullshitting and lying to each other about this free will issue. I don't care what anyone says, better or worse. I happen to think no free will is better. But if you don't you want the truth? It's cleaner, it's kinder, it's nicer to tell the truth to someone.
how did you get involved in the no free will movement?
Okay, so throughout my life, I've tried to do various things, and what I want almost never happened. I was a very sensitive child. I kept a very detailed journal, and I paid very close attention to cause and effect. I would ask my parents. I was always interested in. By the way, I've never taken a philosophy class, or I'm just a person. I just want everyone to know, which gives me an advantage in this, because philosophers screw this up with fancy words. So I'm like a defender of the little guy, a champion of the underdog. So I'm just a person. So to answer your question, I asked my parents about free will. They said, of course, there's free will. I got more and more depressed because I kept messing things up. Nothing I wanted ever happened. I tried to get things that didn't work out. So I kept the journal. So I kept thinking I was crazy, because everyone said there's free will, and I didn't think there was. So I actually, one night in 2011, I was on meetup.com, and I put in illusion of free will. And by the way, I felt very isolated because everybody I met was, saying there's free will, and I felt crazy. And believe it or not, there was a support group in Manhattan on meetup.com called the Illusion of Free Will Meetup Group, hosted by my friend George Ortega. You could read his stuff. And I'm glad I gave him a plug or whatever. So George, I go to the meetup, and there's like 20 people there, all not believing in free. We became a little community, and George said we should do a TV show. So I did a Manhattan cable network, MNN. It's called Free Will ? We did that for about 3 or 4 years. And I became part of this little community, and I felt stronger in my belief because now I found 20 people after all. And that's how I came to it. But my whole life was told to me, do this to get that. And it never happened that way for me. I don't want to get into all the examples of what happened, but almost never did I get what I wanted. And do this to get that did not work. And I knew something was off. Maybe it's my generation, but your parents say you can work hard, you'll get this, or you do that, and use your free will, and nothing worked out. And then the tipping point was when I, for some reason, on Meetup, put in, is there free will or illusion of free will? And I couldn't believe there was a Meetup group. And that's how it all, and by the way, that was right in 2012. And unbeknownst to me, Sam Harris was writing a book called Free Will. I wrote a book originally called The Newer Testament, which I started in 2011. So I didn't know that this was happening. And there's been articles. I can give you a whole list of articles, all in academia, saying there's no free will. I'm trying to popularize it, like I explained before, why I packaged it as a holy Bible.
Yeah, it's interesting. So you find that predetermination is liberating, that if all of our choices are predetermined for us.
Oh, predetermined. I thought you said predetermined. Okay, yeah.
No, predetermined.
Yes.
So yes.
Yes, I find that the silly and stupid mistakes I made, I can forgive myself much easier. I can forgive others much easier. I can be depressed, but not depressed that I'm depressed. The secondary emotion goes away. I'm just chemicals. I can be mad, but I don't have to be mad that I'm mad. I can be, angry, but I don't have to be angry that I got angry, because I'm just chemicals. So it does help me a lot, mental health wise, knowing, especially if I fail at something, that I'm not a failure. It was predetermined. It was part of my personal causal history of cause and effect of why that didn't succeed. And I can let go of it much quicker and just move on. I don't have to beat myself up. Also, I don't hate other people. I look at them as tornadoes or hurricanes. You can fear other people. You just can't hate them, like a wild tiger would be in the street, or a wild bear or lion. They might be destructive and dangerous, and you can fear them, but you don't have to. Logically, you cannot hate when you don't have free will. You fear a hurricane, you fear a tornado, you fear a wild bear, but you can't hate them. It doesn't have free will. Right. That's the key. And I just want to say, a lot of philosophers say there's free will, and I think they're practicing indirect violence. What I mean by that is they're taking what I would call the moral superiority thrill ride. They're telling people, he's a criminal, he's a bad guy, and if I were he, I would not have done that, and he's going to hell, and I'm going to heaven, and I'm superior. It makes people look down on people. It makes people, when you promote free will, it's a very, very severe and harsh thing to say to someone that you could have done otherwise. It's really indirect violence. It's disgusting that some of these philosophers, priests, clerics, rabbis tell people to have free will. What they're saying is, if I were you, I wouldn't have. That's a big mistake, putting your mind in someone else's life. You're not them. If you were them, you would be them. You would have done with their consciousness, with their cause and effect, with their nature and nurture. You would be atom for atom, quark for quark, neutrino for neutrino, molecule for molecule. You get the idea. You would be them with their mind and their soul, because they're going to say, material. But you would have their soul. If you were Hitler, you would have been Hitler. If you were Mother Teresa, you would be Mother Teresa. It's a big mistake to put your mind in someone else's life and say, well, they could have used their free will and not made that bad choice. They deserve to be punished for all of eternity in hell, or 80 years in prison, or whatever it is. It should be about rehabilitation. No one has free will at all. None, zero. So stop saying that I have free will and I'm morally superior to someone who screws up in life. It's really, really, and also the victim of that, it causes depression. It causes you to hate yourself because you have regret and you're upset that you did something wrong. And it causes suicide, as far as I'm concerned, and depression, because after all, you could have done otherwise. So you can just beat yourself up all day and night that you're a bad person with the free will model. It's a heinous, disgusting model. Sorry, don't get me.
Oh, no worries. No worries. Do you still meet with the meetup group, the No Free Will meetup group?
No, it stopped during COVID. And I think George, he lives in White Plains. I don't know if he wants me to say it. I do not, but I would like to get back to it. I don't think it exists anymore.
Yeah. Sounds good. When did you write your book? How long did it take you to write it? And who was your intended audience?
Okay, so I wrote the Holy Bible, No Free Will, at first in 2015. And I'll just jump ahead. So somebody called me from Authors Tranquility Press and said, I'm a book scout. It's a wonderful book. You get a lot of good reviews. Mm-hmm. Are you promoting it? I said, no, I'm not really that into it. So the people at Authors Tranquility Press said, look, Nick, you've really got something here. Mm-hmm. So I republished it in 2023 at the, at the pushing of the domino of the Authors Tranquility Press people saying you got something. So in 2015 is when I came up with it. My intended audience is all of humanity. Like I started to tell you, the reason why I'm coming on your show and writing this book is I want this topic, I don't know how many times I've out of philosophy class. I want it out of academia. I want it out of the intellect. I want to bring it to the people. This is the people speaking up against people using it to keep them down. Like I said to you, I'm the champion of the underdog and the defender of the little guy. When they say you have, so saying there's no free will in a format that's like a Bible, I tried to make it like, I was thinking, should I do self-help or current events? Like I said, I went to the philosophy section of the bookstore, Barnes and any local books. Nobody, trust me, nobody likes philosophy. So I said, what can I do? The best-selling book of all time is the Holy Bible. Let's make a newer version. Let's call it the Holy Bible, No Free Will. And I haven't gotten in books, but can you imagine my book, the Holy Bible, No Free Will, with the dominoes, in a bookstore at Barnes and Noble next to the regular real Bible? I think it'll sell like hotcakes. Yeah. So my intended audience is all of mankind that can read.
It's an interesting marketing concept for sure.
Yeah, it was a marketing concept to put it as a Bible, right? I don't want a philosophy. There are plenty of philosophy books saying there is free will, there isn't free will. You'll drive Deepak Chopra, Sam Harris. It drive you crazy. You want something different that's for the people.
Let's talk a little bit about crime, because that's an ultimate example. Somebody kills somebody, somebody murders somebody. So somebody like the son of Sam, it's all predetermined that he's going to go around to kill a bunch of people when he's in his 20s and 30s?
Yes. You're breaking up a little. You asked me about crime?
Yeah, talking about crime and
okay,
free will. And can a guy stop himself from committing that crime?
I definitely do not believe in... Well, now that we know that free will doesn't exist, we can go back and adjust the, you don't have to deeply or fundamentally blame a flat tire to fix it. So because there's no free will doesn't mean you don't try to fix someone. You just don't give them free will. You don't have to put devil's horns on them and a pitchfork and put him in hell for eternity. You send him to jail because a judge is going to say, okay, son of Sam, you don't have free will, so you had no choice. I also have no choice. I'm the judge, and I have no choice but to keep society safe, and I have no choice but to send you to jail. But since I read Nick's book and the progressive newscast of Logan Crawford, that I know there's no free will, so I'm not going to give you the death penalty. I want to make jail a little nicer. I want to try to rehabilitate you. I'm not going to, I'm not going to give you massages and lobster. And it's not going to be a nice jail. It's still going to be a bad jail to deter you. But I'm going to try to get you, I'm going to put you away to deter others 20, 30 years. I'm certainly not going to kill you because it was not your fault. You had bad parents. You had bad genetics, But I also have so criminals have to suffer pragmatic consequences for their crimes. They do not have to suffer fundamental, deep, true consequences of going to heaven and hell at the end of their life. So the superficial, surface, shallow consequences of jail, but it should be a nicer jail than what we currently have. They'll be removed from society and hopefully rehabilitated. So as far as I'm concerned, no matter how heinous the crime, I know this is going to upset some people, those criminals are fundamentally innocent. They are innocent. Every single criminal is pragmatically guilty, fundamentally on a deeper, truer level, fundamentally innocent. On a superficial, pragmatic, conventional, useful level, they have to go to jail and get rehabilitated. There's a big difference between what level we're discussing this on. Everyone screws this up. There's the pragmatic level and the fundamental level. Fundamental means the truest, deepest thing you can think of. And again, I might upset people, but a criminal, no matter how heinous the act is, because of no free will, is fundamentally as innocent as everybody else, as a perfect angel. They're all fundamentally innocent. They did nothing wrong. They got born wrong. They got very unlucky to have immoral desires. You and I are very lucky to have moral desires. We do not, again, at the beginning of the show, we do not control or choose what our desires are in the first place.
What about creation?
That was a good question. Thank you for that.
What about creating things like a beautiful piece of artwork or a beautiful building as an architect? That also is predetermined, that that person has those abilities to create such a work of art?
Yeah, we don't get to control or choose our gifts. We don't get to control or choose how rational or logical or creative we are, or control or choose how intelligent we are. It's all based on your personal causal history. someone who creates a beautiful artwork, you don't know what their parents taught them, what their genetics were like. That's just all still part of their personal causal history. There's no escape from it. Just because something's beautiful and complicated doesn't mean anything. We're just a more beautiful and complicated robot who does that.
Do you see why people might find it offensive to be viewed only as robots or to have the same predetermination as an animal?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I do see the other side to this. You're asking me, because people might be upset with me or this coming out, it really doesn't matter. I want the truth out. Like I quoted you, David Thoreau, rather than love, money, and fame, give me truth. I think truth is the highest thing for us to be going for as a human being, and we can have future generations. I don't know. I mean, I might be 50 years to 100 years ahead of myself, but the federal government maybe could sponsor a university or in every state of, there's no free will. We agree how to make it less depressing. Maybe there'll be a universal basic income based on age, or we can put robots into all the jobs that nobody wants, the really gross and disgusting jobs, and then everybody can just do what job they want, and we should all get paid the same in this futuristic model. I do see that people can be upset because now they're stressed out that life is a little bit more meaningless. It's also, your whole life is not up to you, so that's a little depressing. It's kind of stressful. On the other hand, you can be much more so there's a negative to no free will, and the positive is you don't have to blame yourself for your silly and stupid mistakes. You will no longer hate yourself. You no longer hate others. You'll be much more compassionate, more humility, more kindness, less blame at all. You may just say, when something happens, what are the causes to this? Let's fix the causes. Let's not get crazy with the toxic, abusive blame that stigmatized. So there's positive and negatives, but as I just want to say, as children, we were taught honesty is the best policy. So as adults, we were just older. Why can't we do that? Honesty is the best policy. Let's be honest about this. There is no free will, and it's up to future generations, or maybe me and you and some other intellectuals, to figure out what to do about it. But let's work with the correct umbrella consciousness that overhangs all of humanity. There's no free will.
The name of the book is Holy Bible, No Free Will. It is written by Nick Vale.
Before we do all that, we just need awareness that this topic is going untreated. It's not in the mainstream media. It's all underground on the internet. You can go on Google and YouTube and plug in the illusion of free will. It's all over the place. This is the very first mainstream interview with a regular person coming out saying, hey, let's get awareness. Let's get this debate. I'm not trying to win the debate yet with you. I'm just trying to get it out.
Oh, of course. I'm just telling the folks the name of the book because
Sure,
we're running out of time. The name of the book is Holy Bible, No Free Will. It's available on Amazon. It's available anywhere you buy books. It's written by Nick Vale. He's a very daring and thought-provoking author who is tackling one of the most contentious debates of our time with his groundbreaking work, The Holy Bible, No Free Will. Give it a look, read it, consider his theories in it, consider his philosophy in it, consider it his way of life in it, and it might just change your perspective. Nick, it's a fascinating book, and we appreciate your time today. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Take care.
And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.